Welcome, everyone. This is the NBA Triple Double, and Ronald Cabang is joining me as always. And we're psyched. You know why we're psyched? Because this is the first edition live show we have done together. And this is how we're going to roll moving forward. We will be on the air Monday through Friday. At about 12:30, we're going to fine tune that start time so it doesn't collide with anything else going on with Sports Memo or Wager Talk. But welcome to the show. We're glad that you could join us during this lunch hour. And we're going to get right to it, Ronald. But first, I wanted to show you something that I came across in the database. And in the database, teams that score 40 or more points in the first quarter. Okay, well, that's a self-fulfilling prophecy in terms of the straight-up ATS and over-under records. But look at the highlighted area there with quarter number one and quarter number two. It almost seems like a opportunity maybe to do two things. One is to take the opponent and bet it in game, and number two is obviously to bet that the margin between these two teams is going to narrow. So over
hmm
the playoffs of since 2003, the average score at the end of the first quarter has been 42.7 to 27.2. So that's a margin of 15. So needless to say, in game, if that's a favorite, the team that scored the 40, you're not going to have an opportunity with it because it's going to be much higher, a much greater favorite than when pre-flop. But do you think there's an opportunity here to monitor this so that if you do get a game like we have tonight, several games are at pick basically,
hmm
slight favorites, that when you do have a team that goes 40 or more in the first quarter, whatever that total is then for the game pre-flop. So say the game closes at 220. It's probably not going to be 220 in the first quarter, but with this decline to 29 points in the second quarter, if you got within, say, 3 points of the total, let's say 223, if it closed at 220, would you bet it then on the over, knowing that you have a 3 point margin and the record has been 13 and 2 for 87%? Am I on to
I
something
mean,
here? Or
for me, I would look towards the live bet on the opponent team, the opposing team, as far as the spread goes, because it looks like here that they match up pretty well going the rest of the way. Especially if you're having a favorite leading by 15 after the first quarter, you're probably going to have a large spread there. And by these numbers, I mean 13 and 2 against the spread for the original number makes sense, right? I mean,
it
they're
sure
not going to
does.
come. I mean, they're not going to come back uh, after that large deficit, especially in the playoffs. Obviously, you've seen it yesterday with the Grizzlies, but it's not a common thing that happens. We're looking at playoff contenders. I mean, they have the coaching staff and the players to make the proper adjustments to stay within the game plan, and just chip away at the lead, just like the Grizzlies did yesterday. So to me, after like a crazy outlier type of first quarter, you would want to look towards the opponent because they're likely going to make the proper adjustments to at least play with them the rest of the way.
I didn't put this in this. I was going to do it for Monday's show, but uh, quarters in the playoffs, there's not many of them that have scored 70 or more, which obviously this is the situation right here. It's 69.9. But I'm going to run it for Monday just so people know what we're going to talk about at the beginning of the show. But 65 points or more in the first quarter, betting the live in game under actually works really well in the high 60% range. So what I think I will do, and I encourage everybody to do, is let's paper trade this. That means that you're not going to put any real money behind it. But let's see how many games tonight, Saturday, and Sunday have 65 or more points scored in the first quarter. Let's see what the in game line is going into the second quarter. And let's see what it does for the weekend, just to see what it does. No pizza money bet, no nothing, just a little test. And an example of what Ronald and I do, we go through data and then we come up with stuff like this. And sometimes it makes no sense at all, and maybe that'll be the case here. But let's move on to the first game here. We have the Miami Heat on the road against the Atlanta Hawks. I think this series is all but done, to be honest with you, Ronald. It's 2-0 Miami, and Miami seems to be an obvious side here, which makes me nervous. It's like that Memphis game the other
Yeah.
night that was 6.5, and they won by a ton. in game two. And wasn't that an unbelievable collapse last night? I mean, it would
Yeah.
be an NBA show if we didn't mention that. I mean, that was just, I didn't know what I was watching. 12 points the Timberwolves scored in both the second and the fourth quarters of the same
Hmm.
game. I don't know what I was watching. It was a horror
Yeah, I
show
mean
if you were a
that speaks
Timberwolves fan.
to yeah, that speaks to the depth of the Grizzlies team and the lack of depth on the Minnesota side to me. That's what it shows. I mean, obviously in the fourth quarter, the guys that were putting up all those points in the first quarter, they were struggling. They were tired. I mean, I think you saw that in the way that they were playing.
Yeah, I agree. Their shots were coming up short, and
Hmm.
that's like in golf when a guy comes up short in the fourth round and he's in contention and he doesn't hit it hard enough. It's the same thing in basketball. It is nerves. It's not. I'm not saying choking. I hate that word,
Yeah.
but when the pressure is on, shots are going to be short in just about every single sport, including pitching, whatever you want to come up with. But in this game, Ron, what do you see as an edge for a betting opportunity between the Heat and the Hawks?
Yeah, this one has a couple of things that are a couple of implications, mainly because you have guys like Bam and Tucker who actually have a questionable tag on them tonight, so that could take effect towards the line here. But as far as like the regular season and so far in the playoffs, the Heat have had the Hawks number pretty much. They took the regular season 3-1 straight up and 3-1 against the spread. The one loss was when they were 1.5 point dogs on the road and they failed to cover by the hook. But they didn't have Lowry or Harrell that game, and it was a bad schedule spot. They were as far as traveling, and they also had the Lakers up next, which at the time was considered a look ahead. This was like around January. I mean, Lakers were still in playoff contention during that time, so it was sort of a look ahead. I mean, and another thing is too, the Hawks are going to be missing Capella, and they have faced the Hawks have faced the Heat 4 times without Capella this season, and they're 0-4 straight up and against the spread. They lost by 24 twice, 10 once, and then another time by 6. And like I mentioned, though, the only reason why I'm not going all in on this at this moment is just because of the fact that Bam and Tucker are both questionable. Both of those guys are key defensive players here. Without them, there's a great chance that Trey could ball out, and because obviously not too many people can play 1-on-1 defensively with Trey. But when you have like help defenders like Bam and Tucker on the floor, that helps tremendously. So that's one thing that I'm probably going to wait on as far as betting on this game specifically. Those two guys are really key to this.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And I'm gonna go with a player prop here. My player props have done pretty well. I actually don't remember who I had last night, but it wasn't even close. I mean, it won easily. But today is what matters. Trey Young, 36 and a half points and assists. I'm going to go under. A lot of the reasons you just mentioned, I think that dovetails right into it. I'm only paying minus 105 at Caesars, minus 104 right now at FanDuel. I think, even if Atlanta has a chance to win, it has to be more balanced attack. And to your point, Miami has double teamed him. They've made him get rid of the ball. A lot of times he's not even bringing the ball up the court. I noticed in that game too. But I think 36 and a half is just too high. So let's move on to our next game. And that is going to be the Milwaukee Bucks against the Chicago Bulls. I can
Hmm.
tell you right now, the Bucks are on that betting angle of the day that we presented yesterday. That will show in a little bit, and that betting angle won with Golden State last night. So my initial lean here, not because of the system alone, but I do think the Bucks here do bounce back. It was a slap in the face what the Bulls did to them, losing as double-digit favorites. I guess they were 9.5, but some places were 10. That's an embarrassing loss. 1 and 2 seeds usually come roaring back. They're 3 seed actually, but those top seeds do have a tendency to bounce back with a big effort. I think that's my initial lean. What do you think, Ronald?
Yeah, I think I talked about this in either probably the last show that we talked the Bucks Bulls matchup, but uh, during the regular season, the Bucks dominated this matchup, but they caught the Bulls in a lot of bad spots, and I had a feeling the Bulls were going to at least steal one game in the series, and they did that. But I think with Middleton out for the Bucks here now, there's actually a strong possibility that this could go 7 games. Their offensive rating is about 3 points better sorry, 3 points worse without Middleton, and their defensive rating is 2 points worse without him. So that's a 5 point net rating gap there. They also play a much slower pace without Middleton. That's another thing that happens when he's one of the only guys that on their team that could come up other than Giannis, obviously, but other than him, he's one of the only other guys that would come up and just shoot from mid range. You just dribble up real quick, don't even pass the ball and just shoot. Offensively, he's that much of a threat. These are some of the reasons I feel like the line and the total has swung the way it has. Because if you look at the opening line and the opening total from game one to now, it's a huge difference. To me, I'm still diving into this one, but I do lean towards the under here. Just the fact that they play a much slower pace and the offensive efficiency just kind of takes a dive without Middleton. And but from a prop perspective, I do see Drew Holiday. I've seen his rebound set at 5.5. I actually like the under here in this one. He's gone over this number just twice in the 12 games that Middleton has been out, and one of those games was actually against the Bulls, and he had zero that game. So I think this is one of the few times that I look at props and I caught that one that just caught my eye. So that's one way to look at this one from a prop perspective.
Yeah, I'm scanning the odds board right now, and yeah, Zach Levine sticks out as a potential under, and I do like the under here. The last five playoff games that the Bulls have played installed as dogs, the under is 5-0. I think you might have mentioned that. Um, the Drew Holiday idea I like. Zach Levine under 26.5 points and assists, minus 104 at FanDuel is attractive to me right now. And Alex Caruso, I'm kind of leaning the over with him. 12 and a half doesn't seem to be very many. Again, the Bulls share the ball very, very well. So I got to think that even if it's a low scoring game, he's going to get plenty of opportunities to get assists and points that would total 12 and a half. Well, actually 13 or more. But let's come back to that a little bit later when we do the best bet segment. And our third and final game is, of course, the Suns. The Suns and the Pelicans, and this is the weirdest line I think I could have ever imagined, to be honest with you, Ronald. I mean, 1.5. It just seems to be an absolute layup to take the Suns. And what's holding me back is 74% of the bets, 72% of the bets right now are on the Suns. And that could mean that that's the pros and the Joes together. At this point, I doubt whether it actually probably is the public this early. They usually wait till like 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time to start coming in. But nevertheless, 72% is kind of a red flag to me to bet the Suns. But maybe there's a situation where everybody's going to be right and the books have this line completely wrong. But I can't imagine the Pelicans winning again. Can you?
Well, I mean, obviously the big news here is the Suns without Booker, right? How do they do without Devin Booker? And I looked into that last night. They're 8-6 straight up, 5-9 against the spread, and 9-5 to the under. Majority of the impact is on the offensive side of the ball, as most people expect. I think the Suns' offensive rating is 7 points worse without Book, and the defensive rating is just 1 point worse. So that's an 8 point net rating gap there. So the way that I looked at this game and the Bucks game, we're just kind of looking at the impact of key players getting, missing that first game without them. But pretty much for Book, I mean, that 8 point net rating gap, that's a pretty significant size for a 14 game sample size. Um, Obviously, the Pelicans have a lot of momentum coming into this game with stealing a win in Phoenix. And the other fact, too, is that they played well before Booker got hurt. So they're probably pretty confident at this point that they could match up well against them with or without Booker on the court. The only thing is that the whole theory about a team missing their key player for the first game. A lot of the bench players play up for that next game. That's one thing that I could see here happening. But really, everything to me is pointing towards the Pelicans stealing another one. that I think Booker is just such a key player offensively that who's going to match up with Ingram and and McCollum as far as offense, right? They're gonna need to defend these guys with Cam Johnson and Crowder. It's gonna be tough, but to me, the line is telling me that Pelicans might be the play tonight.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the scary thing with the line. I think that's exactly a great breakdown, because it's hard to take the Pelicans, very hard to take the
Yeah.
Pelicans because they have a losing record. Losing record playoff teams have a history of not doing well off a win. But this isn't really a losing record Pelicans team. They had a gauntlet of injuries, and now they're kind of coming together at the right time. And they played very well down the stretch just to get to into the playoffs. So I don't think you can really put much credence in the fact that they have a losing record for the
Hmm.
season. Anyway, that's our three games, and now we'll go to the angle of the day, which is the same one as yesterday, and it does support the Milwaukee Bucks today. So again, you're betting on playoff teams coming off a home win, installed as a favorite, and covered the spread in that previous game, and now they find themselves as a road favorite, which the Bucks are 24-7 straight up, 23-7-1 for 73%. And then there's the breakdown of each year. So it hasn't had a losing year, uh, going all the way back to 2012 actually, but I only had room to put up the last 5 seasons, including this one making 6. But Ronald, I have to say, and I'm going to do this like I did yesterday on the show, that I said it very quietly, so the betting gods wouldn't hear. But just take a look to the right side of the slide, folks. I can hardly believe that this is actually happening. 11-1 the last 12. I have to go back to the 2011 playoffs of my career that I had something that matched this. And we always talk about when we're running hot, uh, the good things happen. And I mean, who do you think I had last night as a 4% premium bet for my clients? It
Had to be
was
the Grizz.
Memphis. Unbelievable. I mean, I was watching the game and I thought, well, you know, it had to happen. Not that I was due to lose. It's just like, okay, well, this is the clunker. It's only one game. It's only one loss. And then I swear to you, and we talked about this before we went on the air, you could see the comeback happening again, even though it was monumental in size. They had 26-point lead and a 23-point lead twice in the same game. He scored 12 points in the fourth quarter. And I'm sorry, but Towns in that press conference really, I thought, was kind of embarrassing because he wouldn't answer a question, and it was like crying over spilled milk. I mean, this is a big boys game. It's professional sports, and I think they ought to be held to accountability. You gotta, all right, you just lost a horrible game. We understand as the press that you don't want to answer these questions, but you gotta tell us something. You can't just be Bill Belichick and say next question, please. Next question. Next question. No, I wanted to hear what he had to say. I think generally, Ronald, and I'll say this: I'm getting tired of the. How can I say it? I wish they would bring back the days where only the captain of the NBA team could talk to a referee. It seems like everybody now, and that it is everybody. That you get these phantom fouls called, and then the guy who got the foul called on him is complaining. And if it's the other way around and the call doesn't get called, and I thought John Morant did an excellent job containing himself, controlling his
Yeah.
emotions because he was getting freaking hammered. At
Yeah,
least
that
on my
game was real
television said
physical.
he was.
Yeah, that game was real physical. I think the reason why that game went under yesterday is the fact that they didn't call the fouls. Because you typically when you get foul calls early, that opens up the game because the defenders are gonna kind of lax off. They're gonna relax a little bit. They're not gonna push up like they did. But when the refs allow physicality, they can continue to do that, right? Because they're not changing the way that they play. They know that the refs are gonna call the game a specific way. That makes it hard for the offense to actually score. So my take. I mean, you were seeing a lot of fouls called in the first game, and even throughout the whole playoffs, they were getting like ticky tack fouls called. But the referees yesterday, they let the physicality go, and that's the reason why the game went under, in my opinion.
Yeah, it went under by a ton. That
Yeah.
that was never even in jeopardy of going over. They could have had double overtime and it wouldn't have gone over.
No.
Anyway, let's move on to our best bet segment, which is the best part of the show, I suppose. And I'll defer to you to start us off with your best bet or best bets for the show, Ronald.
Hmm. This is tough because I actually haven't placed my bet in yet. I was still doing some research on it. Um, I think through leans, I've mentioned the Heat in the Heat Hawks game. I mentioned the under in the Bulls Bucks, and also Drew Holiday rebounds under. And then on the Suns game, I was leaning towards the Pelicans here. This is a tough slate today. I think the injuries really impacted the injuries, and the injury statuses have really impacted my decision making here. To me, I think my heaviest lean though is towards the Pelicans. I think Book is such a big impact for this team offensively. Pelicans with the momentum coming into this game, I think they could steal one here at home, take the lead 2-1, and maybe the Suns come back in Game 4 and take that one to match it up. So for me right now, the heaviest lean is toward the Pelicans.
Yeah, I'm gonna lean. I'm gonna make this a 3 percenter. Best bet on the Miami Heat. I think Atlanta, despite having Trey Young, um, who's a star. I mean, whether you like him or not, I can see why people like him. I can see why people don't like him. But he's fun and entertaining to watch, in my opinion. Excuse me, but I think the Heat are the better team. In other words, they have a lot more games where they have 5 or 6 players scoring in double digits. They spread the ball well. They move the ball well. They have an excellent assist to turnover ratio. And they also have an excellent edge in defensive assist to turnover ratio over the Hawks. So even though it's in Atlanta, I think Atlanta knows they are not. I mean, sometimes you look in the mirror, right, and you just know you're not as good as the opponent, and you can play your guts out, but at the end of the day, Miami is the better team, and they're a number one seed for a reason, and I think Atlanta knows that. So my 3 percenter here will be on the Miami Heat. I have another 4 percenter going tonight. Um, folks, it's an 11-1 run, 70% over the last 59. And one of these times, the betting guys are going to hear me say it, and I'm going to have a clunker. We just don't know when that's going to be. But, I'm going to put it up for $9 only, so everybody can afford it. That's, the cost of, McNuggets and an IPA is $9, I think, and now at McDonald's. So, Ron, do you have anything going on this weekend or tonight at Sports Memo?
Right now, not anything up right now. I'm still diving into the games. It's always tough because I'm in the West Coast. So I wake up. You guys are already up, putting placing your bets and stuff. So it's a little tough for me on the West Coast. But most of the time I have my bets in by like around 11 or noon Pacific time. Um, Today's NBA slate is really tough though to me. But well, I'll have something up. There's going to be stuff up.
Well, that's a good point. I'm on the East Coast, as you said, and you and I put up our best bets for our premium clients at about the same time of the day. And you're absolutely right. You really want to give your clients all the information they need. It's
Hmm.
kind of awkward sometimes, like if somebody's not playing or a pitching change, and then you have to get that word out. Okay, this plate isn't valid anymore. If you would have just waited, you would have known, and then the play would have never been validated. But I
Yeah.
think that time period, 3 to 5 o'clock, is plenty of time for people to buy the picks and also get them booked on their sports betting app.
Yep.
So have a great weekend, Ronald. Best of luck to both of us. Hopefully, we can have some better numbers come Monday.
Yeah.
But one day at a time, one pitch at a time, 1 hour at a time, whatever it is, that's how you have to think in this business. So thanks for everyone for watching. Thanks for everybody in the chat room. That was great to see. We'll respond to any questions you have accordingly. And until Monday for the next edition of the NBA Triple Double, bet with your head and never over it, and may all the wins be yours.